Before we dive into the story, let me give you a quick disclaimer. What you're about to hear are just theories, a tangled web of events I've gathered from the deepest corners of the internet. Some details might be wrong, some things might be off, but this is how the internet has woven together the chilling tale of Isaac Kappy. As we unravel these mysteries, ask yourself, is this just another conspiracy, or is there something far more sinister at play? It started like any other day, scrolling through my Twitter timeline, mindlessly passing post after post. But then, something caught my eye. A strange post from a page called Isaac's Army. "You can run, but you can't hide. Was the fame and fortune worth it?" I thought this must have been something to do with all the hype surrounding the Diddy case. It's the kind of thing you brush off at first. According to the internet, every celebrity's a pedophile, especially A-list heavy hitters like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. It's just another internet conspiracy, right? I didn't think much of it at first, but then I noticed the numbers. Isaac's Army had over 300,000 followers, and that post had been viewed over 1 million times. Who's this Isaac dude with the Bob Ross haircut? I had to look into it. This is where things took a dark turn. Isaac Kappy had tragically died on May 13th, 2019. The official report said suicide. He jumped off a bridge onto Route 66 in Arizona, only to be struck by a truck below. It was brutal, horrific, but it didn't make sense. His last small acting role was years before his death, so why did he have such a rabid fan base and accounts with his name to this day? There were only a few sentences about his death on Wikipedia. Besides this, there wasn't much info on him. Something seemed off, and it turns out something was off. See, Kappy had made it very clear to his followers in the months leading up to his death, he wasn't suicidal. He repeated it over and over again. "I'm not suicidal," he said in several videos.
"I'm not suicidal. I'm not suicidal."
It felt like a mantra, like he was trying to convince himself, or perhaps send a message to those who might try to silence him. "I'm not suicidal. I'm not suicidal." Kappy wasn't just an actor. In the year leading up to his death, he had become something else. An internet figure wrapped in controversy and conspiracy. He wasn't making movies anymore. Instead, he was making enemies. Powerful enemies. In 2018, Kappy started using social media to make bold, disturbing allegations against some of Hollywood's biggest stars. The accusations were almost unbelievable. Claims that Steven Spielberg, Stephen Colbert, Bill Clinton, and many others were involved in a secret pedophile ring. Kappy wasn't just some guy spouting nonsense. He had followers. Loyal, devoted followers who believed every word. One of his most chilling accusations was against actor Seth Green, who Kappy'd been friends with for over 30 years. Kappy claims he was at a party when a random child came up to him asking for Green, which Kappy found highly suspicious. According to Isaac, Green later showed off a hidden room where he had dim lighting and a bed and said, "This is where we keep the children."
Seth turned to me and opened up this secret bookshelf and he's like, "This is where we keep the children."
Kappy also alleges that Green invited him to join the Illuminati, stating that he would be given $250,000 a year as well as any car that he wanted. Seth allegedly also told Isaac that they needed to talk about, which is code word for very young children. It was here that Kappy claims Green exposed his pedophile secret, revealing that he likes to have sex with kids. Kappy took to the streets and exposed this to the public.
Because Seth, Claire, and I were having a dinner at their house, and Seth said, "We now need to have a talk about chicken."
The internet was buzzing. People were divided. Some called him crazy and mentally unstable, while others saw him as a whistleblower, someone brave enough to stand up to the dark forces controlling Hollywood. But these weren't accusations that would just blow over. The conspiracy was out, and Kappy wasn't done yet. Then came the bombshell. Isaac Kappy accused Tom Hanks, America's favorite actor, of being involved in this same shadowy network. Tom Hanks, the man who played beloved characters like Forrest Gump and Mr. Rogers. A pedophile? Hanks never responded. Neither did Green. It was as if they didn't want to give Kappy's accusations any legitimacy. But Kappy's followers, they believed him. And they believed he'd crossed a line, revealing secrets too dangerous to be known. As Kappy's claims grew louder, so did the fear among his followers that something terrible was coming. Things took an even darker turn in the days leading up to his death. Isaac posted a lengthy, unsettling message on Instagram where he talked about betrayal, betraying those close to him, using people for money. He called himself a bad guy. Again, that theme of darkness, the one he'd been alluding to for months, came up. He was haunted by it, consumed by something unseen. But through it all, he maintained one thing.
I'm not suicidal. I'm not suicidal.
And yet, on May 13th, 2019, he committed suicide. Jumped from a bridge, they said. Witnesses tried to stop him, to pull him back. But apparently he leaped before they could reach him. How could someone so adamant that he wasn't suicidal end up dead this way? And then, the internet did what it does best. It filled in the gaps. Theories began to emerge, and they were disturbing. Kappy had been silenced, they said. He had gotten too close to the truth. And those in power, the very people he had accused, had made sure he couldn't say anymore. One of the strangest pieces of evidence that fueled these theories was a tweet from Tom Hanks, posted just weeks before Kappy's death. The tweet showed a single glove lying on the ground along Route 66, the same road Kappy had died on just weeks later. The caption, "Historic Route 66. Roadkill?" For Kappy's followers, this was no coincidence. They believed Hanks knew what was coming, that this tweet was a message, a warning. And if that wasn't enough, Hanks posted again on the day Kappy died. This time, it was a handkerchief lying crumpled on the ground. Some believe this was more than just an innocent photo. In fact, it reminded them of another eerie detail: the deaths of high-profile individuals like fashion designer Kate Spade, who'd been found hanged with red scarves. Could this handkerchief be a symbol? A subtle nod to a larger, more sinister connection? The theories only grew from there. Kappy's followers pored over every detail, looking for clues, for signs. And to them, everything pointed to one thing: foul play. The name of the game is blackmail. Kappy said in one of his final live streams, "They want something on you that they can hold over your head. They film it, and then they own you." The deeper Kappy dug, the more enemies he had made. And the more enemies he made, the more paranoid he became. Kappy admits in many of his live streams that he was a very flawed individual, ridden with guilt, that he was not without fault and had many demons of his own. One example of this was seen when he choked Michael Jackson's daughter during a game night. Yeah, you heard that right. Kappy was friends with Paris Jackson, but Jackson distanced herself after Kappy allegedly choked her during a night game. The incident drove a wedge between them, and in the months that followed, Kappy's behavior became increasingly erratic. He sent rambling, cryptic messages to Jackson, which many now see as cries for help. Was Kappy losing his mind, or had he stumbled upon something real? That's the question his followers continue to ask. They believe he was silenced before he could reveal more, that this death was no accident, but a carefully orchestrated murder designed to keep Hollywood's darkest secrets under wraps. Then there was Tracy Twyman, an investigative journalist who'd been circling around the same narrative as Kappy, one where the world's most powerful people were involved in secretive, abusive practices shielded from public view. Twyman didn't just stop at Hollywood elites, however. Her work pointed to a global system where media moguls, political figures, and business leaders were involved in these deeply sinister activities. For Twyman, these weren't just conspiracies. She claimed to have uncovered real evidence of these connections through leaked documents, encrypted communications, and coded messages that she believed were being used to facilitate these heinous activities. What made Tracy Twyman's story even more compelling and chilling was how closely her work aligned with Isaac Kappy's allegations. Both of them were pointing fingers at the same powerful figures, claiming that Hollywood's elite were not just turning a blind eye to child exploitation, but were deeply involved in orchestrating it. Twyman and Kappy were digging into the same dark corners of Hollywood, and both were very public about the threats they received as a result of their work. In the weeks before her death, Twyman told close friends and colleagues that she was being followed, harassed, and threatened. Her emails and social media accounts were reportedly hacked, and she had become increasingly paranoid about her safety. Yet she continued her investigation, refusing to be silenced. One of Twyman's most explosive claims was that she had discovered an organized network of YouTube channels being used to auction children to the highest bidder. According to Twyman, these channels used coded language and symbols, innocuous to the untrained eye, to advertise and sell children to elite clientele. She traced these channels back to powerful figures, including some involved in the entertainment industry, and even linked them to a specific location, Greenleaf Canyon Campgrounds in Arizona. This campground, Twyman claimed, was part of a larger network of places where these trafficking activities occurred. She believed it was run by individuals with deep ties to organized crime and the occult, men who used their connections to shield their activities from law enforcement. Twyman's revelations painted a terrifying picture, one where the same elites who controlled the media, Hollywood, and politics were also operating in the shadows, using their influence to carry out unspeakable acts. But as Twyman got closer to exposing the truth, the threats against her became more serious. She confided in those close to her that she was being watched. Her home was under surveillance, and she feared for her life. Then, on July 10, 2019, just weeks after Isaac Kappy's death, Twyman was found, hanged in her garage. Her death was quickly ruled a suicide, but to those who knew her and to the many who followed her work, it felt all too familiar, eerily reminiscent of Kappy's tragic end. Like Kappy, Twyman had made it clear that she wasn't suicidal. She had reportedly stated that if anything happened to her, it would be because she'd gotten too close to the truth. The timing of her death, so soon after Kappy's, raised immediate suspicions among her followers. They believed that Twyman, like Kappy, had been silenced, eliminated before she could reveal the full extent of her findings. Adding to the mystery were the cryptic messages Twyman had shared in her final weeks. She spoke of powerful people trying to intimidate her, using fear and psychological tactics to push her to the edge. She even described instances of mind control, suggesting that the very people she was investigating had the means to manipulate her mentally and emotionally. Whether or not Twyman's death was truly connected to her work may never be known, but the parallels between her story and Kappy's are hard to ignore. Both were outspoken, both made powerful enemies, and both died under mysterious circumstances. And in their deaths, they've become symbols of a growing movement that believes the truth is still out there, waiting to be uncovered. As Kappy himself said in one of his final broadcasts, the people who are telling you who to like are compromised. The people in charge of the media, the music, Hollywood, they're all compromised. In the shadows of Hollywood, behind the glitz and glamour, there are still whispers of the things Kappy tried to reveal. Blackmail, trafficking, corruption at the highest levels. Things that, if true, could bring down empires. Whether Isaac Kappy was right, or whether he simply became lost in his own web of darkness, may never be known. But one thing is certain: the mystery of Isaac Kappy's death continues to haunt, and the questions he raised about the hidden underbelly of the entertainment industry and the world's most powerful figures remain unanswered. As Kappy's followers often say, the truth will come out eventually. Whether it does or not, the eerie legacy of Isaac Kappy's life and death will continue to fuel speculation and fear. A cautionary tale about what happens when you dare to pull back the curtain and reveal the monsters lurking beneath.